Welcome to Open Veil, where I discuss a variety of concepts that expand your perception on reality while allowing you to enter into your infinite potential by simply liberating your mind to its possibilities. Do you dare to wander in the depth of my mind?
Hello and welcome. This is your host, Jasmine Grujon, and on today's concept, I wanted to go ahead and discuss how life can be used as a character builder. And when we think about character building, exactly what would that define? Well, when you look it up, it would say something around the lines of requiring effort or endurance to a degree that straightens or improves a person's character. And life in itself can prove to be a tremendous character building experience if we learn to place our attention to the opportunities it provides us for growth and the gaining of wisdom. Because it in itself can help us make tremendous growth and evolution within ourselves and on a soul level, because it allows us to improve on our emotional strengths and become more independent and be better at dealing with problems, therefore gaining the fortitude and the resilience to become self-mastered. And unfortunately, for many of us, before we come into this realization, we are just simply experiencing life, not really sure of what life is and what is it that I'm doing here and the why behind our intention to having this human experience. Most don't even think about these questions because they're so distracted with the everyday life and the orchestration of these illusions that we call life that make us step into our character per se. The character that just comes with the narrative of our beliefs and our conditioning and our traditions and nationalities and degrees and status and so on. Basically, living by the ego that allows us to come into this human experience and play out a role to the character that we decide to play, so that in that experience of playing such role, we gain the wisdom that we came to obtain. Most miss out on the gaining of the wisdom and just live in the character, which actually there's nothing wrong with, because everything and everyone has purpose. You see, not everyone is meant to wake up to the reality of what we can actually do with this experience of life on a grander scale of things, stepping into our full potential and completely outside of the box that fabricates this very experience. Because if we don't have those who are not awakened or not doing what is perceived as virtuous or good, as there is no such thing as good or bad, as all of that is just subjective, but considering what we collectively agree on, if we don't have the contrast of that polarity, we won't even know of the opposite of it. As I always say, we need the polarity to know the opposite of something. So I only speak to the ones that have already awakened to the reality that there is more to life than the one that we perceive to be, than the status quo that is expected of us, and of the things that we have been programmed to believe. Those that are seeing past the veil of illusion of the three-dimensional experience that actually gives us the perfect stage to perform the acts and experience the interactions and embody the emotional states that come from these experiences so that we can become more aware of the self through the knowing of self in those very experiences. And to simplify the matter, I wanted to go ahead and bring into example. So let's say per se that you are a spirit that is anticipating the temporary human experience because there is a curiosity or a question or a practice of overcoming a challenging maybe belief or limitation or fear or so on that maybe you on a soul level or spirit have struggled throughout many lifetimes with. So you want to master yourself over such conditioning or events or whatever it might be. So you come into the experience with the intention of doing just that, understanding how it all works and the nature of the complexity of such reality, how it is fabricated by the projection of your own psyche that is connected, intertwined, or quantum entangled with your higher mind, your consciousness, the consciousness that actually exists within the fabrication of all that is within that experience, as you are the co-creator experiencing yourself through the vastness of its potential of probabilities. And to simplify a little deeper, if that may have been a bit too complex to comprehend, think about it this way. When you go to bed at night and you fall asleep and you go into the different states within your mind until you go into your dream state. In that dream state, in your mind, it is you who is imagining or orchestrating this manifestation of whatever the dream is, using your mind to do it, right? Because it is our mind what orchestrates everything that we experience. This is why everyone has their own unique experience through the perception of their subjective choices with the free will that they have to choose what they decide to believe as truth, right? And just like that, within this dream, you will dream about maybe things you were thinking about, maybe things that are completely unconscious, and your unconscious mind is allowing you to become aware of it through the symbolism within this dream that is now fabricating for you so that you can become conscious of that unconscious aspect within you. It is the performance of the mind that is orchestrating itself for you to see and experience. And nothing outside of you is creating such dream. Obviously under different circumstances, but we won't go into that. In the common normal state of how a dream comes about, this is what I mean. So just like in our dreams that only we experience as the dreamer having the dream experience, observing the symbols, the interactions, and feeling the embodiment of the emotions that surface within this dream. It is all you in the making of that dream. There's nothing outside of your own mind fabricating this. So the same way the dream state happens, this reality is considered per se a continuation of that very thing. Consider it a dream within a dream within a dream, an infinite potential of self-creation within itself. This is why I always say we are like a fractalization of itself over and over and over again, an infinite amount of variants and versions of ourselves throughout all time and space, because there is no such thing as time and space, just a fragment of that present moment that we are conscious in. So let's not get that deep, but going back into the purpose behind that explanation. When we are experiencing life and we start becoming conscious of what is it that we are experiencing within that life, we start to pay attention to the theme and the patterns and the symbolism and the synchronicities, because it is the very thing that is communicating with us. It is your experience that only you can perceive, and everyone that you interact with and experience is only a reflection of you per se, to some degree, because so much energy or emphasis has been placed upon these individualized beings. To some degree, they are coming into quote unquote life, where they're not just the animation of your own projection that you are emitting externally to react and behave and do the things that you would believe them to do, right? Because you are the co-creator of your dream. And if you are a dream, only that which you believe to be possible, or only that which you believe to be true, or only that is unconscious to you, will manifest itself. So when we think about life, before coming into, let's say, this reality, we are falling asleep to have the experience of this life that we are currently in. And in that sleep, before falling asleep, we had an intention to master ourselves, to become the best version of ourselves, to become a spirit, a soul, an individual of substance, of depth, of knowledge, of wisdom, of virtue, of integrity, per se. Let's say that was the intention. Now, with that intention, when we fall into the sleep state, to some degree is almost like an inversion into this dream state, where we now get to experience, let's say, the opposite of what we actually really want. Why would that be, you may ask? Well, unfortunately, because of how much the embodiment of experience teaches us on a cellular level, on a spiritual level, and on a mental level, because an experience allows us to fully embody the senses that penetrate and allow all that we are to be within that experience. So, metaphorically, as an example, I'm going to give this. Let's say that you want to master your ability to be intuitive, to read people's minds to some degree, or to just be in the knowing of what's really occurring and not falling for the deception of any illusion. In order for you to master such tasks or such practice or such gift, you have to do it enough time that you become a master of it from the doing and the experience of it. Why? Because it is through practice that mastery occurs. It is through the interaction of deceit that we start to pick up on what is deceit. It is through the experience of pathological liars, thieves, and our own self-betrayal where we learn what is truth and what is not. It is through the events and the experience that manipulate our conscious awareness to some degree, almost veiling our eyes into, let's say, rose-colored glasses to see the world in a whole different light. And even though we may experience this illusion as if so to be hypnotized after undergoing certain levels of manipulation that influences how we see the world per se, we understand what it is to be under such delusion, illusion, and hypnotized state to perceive the lie while you yourself being the truth. And obviously, this practice will be a lot easier if you are genuinely honest and true to yourself. If you are to emerge and entangled with the act or the behavior of lying, it will be very difficult for you to be truly intuitive without deceiving yourself. You see, we have to become the polarity of our environment that is only giving us the opposite of what we want to master. I hope this is making sense. So once we are under the influence of this reality that to some degree makes us forget who we are and our intention in it, it is only for us to feel our way through it. Meaning, let's say that as we fall asleep and step into the dream state of this world, of this reality, it is almost as if putting a blindfold on and feeling ourselves out of it, right? In order for you to get out of the manipulation, of the influence, of the illusion, you have to feel yourself through it. Because it is for you to master your intuition, therefore, it is for you to practice it. As practice makes the perfect, so that you can step into the mastery of such task. So when you find yourself attracting things and people and situations that you are being lied to, deceived, let down, and so on, it is not to take this opportunity that life is giving you to master yourself, to play the victim card, or to complain, or to be so stuck in the illusion of it that you lose sight of the purpose that you came here to do, which is unfortunately what happens to most. When we say lost souls, it's because they lost sight of what they truly came here to learn and experience. So now they are becoming a part of the illusion that is only meant to orchestrate the stage that they needed to practice what they wanted to master, you see. Which is how life in itself is the perfect orchestration or stage for us to truly build our character. So when you start to become aware of this and you take this concept as a theory that is possible for you, you start to, just based on that perception, you start to empower yourself, because now you start to feel more in control of your life. And instead of playing the victim or complaining or feeling that you are left in the dark, you quickly start to realize that you are only in the dark so you can feel your way out of it. that you are only in the reality that is giving you everything that you are not, so that you know exactly who you are. Because another example would be, even if it's not to master your intuition, maybe it's to master your ability to have fortitude, to have internal strength and be completely independent. Life will give you and orchestrate the events and the experiences and the interactions and the relationships that you need to cultivate that very essence. Because true character that is built on a soul level is built from the seed within the soul, meaning it cannot be taken, it cannot be brought, it cannot be replicated, it cannot be duplicated, it cannot even be pretended, for energy never lies. And even if you pretend to have such character, with time the veil will be unveiled, the mask will fall off, because to hold such character, you have to have the complete making that cultivates and holds that energy eternally, not just in this variant of this one possibility, of this one dream. Every night when we fall asleep, we have a different dream, being a different version of ourselves in a different location with different people. These are all infinite variants of ourselves. But one thing is certain: when you build your character down to your core essence, that character cannot leave you. It doesn't matter what variant of you get to experience. You have honed in and fully integrated by engraving your soul with such characteristic traits, which is why it's so unique, which is why people that have true character can withstand anything that life brings, because they continue to be that character with or without the illusions and the monetary gains and the status and the companionship and so on of anything of illusionary factors in this world. Because a person of true character already knows this is just training grounds. Who I really am outside of this compartmentalized factor of myself within this limited reality is way greater and infinite than this. Right? Because you already know who you are, not only within the box, but outside the box in your infinite, immortal essence. Understanding and knowing that there's no such thing as death, only the physical body descending and going back into the ecosystem of nature and coming and blossoming out as something new. But my essence, my core essence, the essence that continues to be me, who I really am, which is everything and nothing all simultaneously, infinitely, that essence will continue on for all eternity. Just because it's not in the animation of one vessel doesn't mean it's not in the animation of infinite potentials of myself through the vastness of the cosmos that it is all interconnected with. And when you have solidified your character, have tuned and tapped in and turned on to your higher self, knowing that, oh yeah, I am not only this, I am everything and nothing all at once. Fear will cease to exist, because to fear things is to fear yourself. And when you realize the only thing you fear is yourself, because you know what you can be and what you can become, while knowing that you have mastered yourself to the point that you don't even have to go there, because none of that is even irrelevant, because that's not the intention you came here for. You're thinking too outside the box to care what's inside of it, per se. So you make sure you use life as the training ground to build the character that is now going to be the essence of your truth throughout the plane of all time and space. That when your essence is seen or felt, it is known to be just that because it is that masterful within itself. An essence that has not ever needed to be spoken, only experienced for what it truly is. Whether it has the world or none of it at all, it continues to be just that. When you find yourself not needing what society tells you you need to be somebody, when you find yourself not caring what others want you to be or become, when you find yourself completely detached from anything, anyone, any story, any pain, any belief, anything of this world, completely detached, meaning you're good with it or without it, because you know that you are infinite. You know that by just simply thinking it, when you are outside the box, you can recreate it and come right back to it. There's no ending to what is possible in your co-creation of life. It all depends on your intention and what is it that you want to experience. So before we step into the grand mastery of self, to step into that level, we have to learn to take the opportunity that life gives us to truly step into the mastery, where we can take stress of life and allow it to teach us how to adapt, so that in the adaptation of life, we learn how to maneuver and find resolution a lot faster than when we didn't have the practice of stress, so that we know what it is to adapt. When we lose anything or anyone, we teach ourselves how to see the value of something, so that when we have it, we learn to appreciate it more. We learn to value it more. We learn to savor the moment and be present with it and express how we truly feel at that moment, because tomorrow is never guaranteed. When we are in a poor environment, for example, it teaches us how to value ourselves, because when you truly start to learn who you are, your worth, you set a certain standard for yourself where you want to love yourself fully and truly. Therefore, you don't want to eat certain things. You want to be around certain people or places that are not going to display the example of you truly loving yourself. You're not going to drink alcohol. You're not going to do drugs. There's so many things that you're not going to no longer tolerate because you have sat in poor environments long enough to know that the act of certain behaviors no longer serve you in the intention of you truly loving yourself. But sometimes we can think, oh yeah, I love myself, but not really know what that means. You know, when I started this learning to love myself, it was because I was starting to change my lifestyle and associating with people that I were actually displaying the behavior of taking care of the body, eating the right things, and thinking more optimistic and positive, right? Which then influenced me to choose better for myself. When it came to places, relationships, friendships, what I consumed, everything. And then there were still aspects of me that I was like, wait, I think I love myself, but me staying in this place or relationship is me actually acting on the opposite of that. And then there, in that moment, I learned how my own inner wounds that were unresolved and unprocessed and healed were influencing certain aspects of me, because I was prone to acting a certain way, like, let's say, people pleasing and putting people before me because I wanted to be good. I wanted to feel needed and I wanted to be valuable, because for whatever reason, there was a belief in me in this experience that told me in order for me to be loved or appreciated or valuable, I had to be that. So then I started to reflect and think, where did that come from? What example did I see that made me feel that way? What experience did I go through that made me feel that way? Why did I not see the value in myself by just being myself, being present, being me? And that should be enough. Why did I feel the need that I had to people please or come and be of value to someone else to feel useful, to feel appreciated, to feel worthy? You know, a lot of these things are unconscious in us because either we are, believing these things from a young age. We see it as an example and we think it's normal. So it is in these moments that life gives us the opportunity that once an intention is placed, we start to filter out anything that goes against it. And in the filtering of anything that goes against, let's say, my intention of really loving myself, I became aware of all these unconscious aspects within myself that contradicted me truly loving myself. Because me truly loving myself is me knowing that with or without doing anything for anyone else, I am valuable, I am worthy, I bring value just being myself. Because when I love, I nurture. When I don't want to be around people, I remove myself. It doesn't make me right or wrong, good or bad. It just makes me human. And I am okay with the vastness of my humanness. I am okay with my flaws. I am okay with my strengths. I don't care to dim my light around people, because if my light is too bright, I remove myself and leave them in the darkness that they would prefer. And that's okay. There is no right or wrong. But if I feel that I need to overdo or be someone that I'm not, or people please, or feel that I need to do this to not be, let's say, a burden, then am I really around the right people if that is the reaction that I am feeling in their experience with me? Because when I noticed that it was only around certain people that I would feel this way, then I quickly started realizing who really values me and appreciates me for just being me, and who's there to use me, right? Because why is that the response I'm getting? There is some form of a projection that they have towards me that is making me feel that way, and there's also a belief in me that accepts it. So I had to reevaluate everything and everyone around me, and then having to choose less was not an option any longer, because to choose less would be me choosing less of myself. But when I felt comfortable and safe to be myself, and it was natural to want to do something and natural to not, I didn't feel like I was being judged. I didn't feel like I was useless. I didn't feel these things that I used to feel before, which came from my own, narrative and programming and beliefs and examples, of course. But also I realized that I align with such people within those very wounds. So now, when I healed, when I learned to accept and love myself with or without it, I started aligning myself with better experiences, better people. The quality of my experience with these interactions were completely different. When I saw myself valuable, they saw me as valuable. You understand? When I cherished myself and loved myself and gave myself the best of the best, first, I did it for me. I traveled by myself. I took myself to spas every week. I would make sure I had the best dinners. I was doing this for me because I learned to love and appreciate myself fully. Now, every interaction after that, they were only reflecting that back to me. So anyone that wasn't, I didn't interact with. And everyone that wasn't, I saw that there were still aspects of me that I had to work on. So now the interactions that went and contradicted my intention, I observed. I placed them as what I would call a case study, because they were showing me something that was unconscious in me, which is the only reason why there was an alignment with me. There was a form of resonance that we had that I had to become aware of. So that's exactly what I would do. I would ask myself the right question, and I would ask them the questions that I needed to know. What was the deeper underlying resonance between me and this individual? Or maybe they were just there to bring me an experience so that I can master another aspect of myself with something that they were going to introduce in my life that was going to allow me to maybe step into a veiled experience temporarily, so I can know what that feels like, so that in the knowing and the embodiment of that experience, I know exactly what it was. And once the lesson was learned just like that, I was Houdini out of it, right? The pull and the attraction to such individuals no longer was present. Their experience no longer applied with my resonance, because the lesson that they came to bring had already been learned. So instead of forcing experiences or interactions or relationships that didn't feel effortless, didn't feel like we were on the same page, I just released them. I just let go, because that's what I was guided to do intuitively. Not everyone or every experience or every place is supposed to be there for a lifetime. For many of us that wish to master a lot of aspects of ourselves, a lot of these interactions or experiences or relationships or jobs or places are just temporary for the experience that they will cultivate for us. And if we don't know how to read through those lines and be completely aware of when that expiration date is present, then we would only be hindering ourselves. And best believe, if you decide to delay the natural course of the orchestration of your life that is only happening for you, not to you, the universe, God, your higher self, will force you out of it. It would make sure to create some form of a scene, a betrayal, a tragedy of some sort that would force you and shake you up out of the situation that no longer serves you. Which has happened to me several times when I was not getting the point and the patterns and my own intuitive nudges that I knew I was supposed to do, but I delayed it. I made excuses for it. I thought that I can work it out. I thought all these things that just went against it, and basically only got worse because I didn't listen to the first time when I knew when the time is up, right? So that's all learning experience. Now, I don't have to be told twice when God says, okay, you learned your lesson, now move forward. There's nothing the past is going to show you that's going to be new, so keep moving forward. And that's exactly what I do. Why? Because I learn the mastery of detachment. Because I understand that being attached to places and things and stories and all these narratives that run through the course of my thoughts, it was being attached to those things that actually delayed my growth and evolution to the next stage of myself. Because I didn't come here to be attached to the storyline of the drama that I'm here to play so that I can play out the practices to my mastery. I didn't come to be attached to any of that. So when I realized that, it was easy for me to think outside the box and see things from a higher perspective and gracefully letting go with love, right? Gracefully knowing that to take life personally would only be to anchor myself in stagnancy of a level that I had already graduated. So to hold grudges and not forgive is only detrimental on a soul level for me. I know that by doing such thing, I would only be anchoring, in essence, a fragment of my essence in a probability that I'm no longer supposed to be in. So I now learned through the practice and the experience of life never to take it personally. Because by detaching myself from the expectations of anything or anyone or even myself, I remove all judgment and I remove all disappointment. I just learned to allow things to be that which they are, because it is that. Whatever it is just that. There's no right or wrong. They are just an experience to be had for this present moment in my orchestration for mastery of self, to build the character that I desire, that is virtuous. And in order for me to know what virtue truly is, I have to see it through the experience, let's say, of betrayal. The lack of class, the lack of virtue, the lack of integrity of another that is only giving me the example of why having virtue and integrity and good character is important. Because had I not had these experiences that are distorted and are acted out through the wounding and the distorted perception of these individuals, I would not know the value of what it is to have it. You understand? So this is how simultaneously everything interconnects with itself. Because how would I know why is it even important to have virtue and integrity unless I see the example of what that looks like without it? I see the lack of it in others. I see the lack of it in another that may affect me or others in a negative way, in a negative light. The hopelessness, the letdown, the disloyalty, all these things create this inner disappointment, this inner disbelief in humanity, right? So even though I understand the rarity of such characteristics, it does not remove me from the intention of wanting to become that, because there has to be the hope to believe that it is possible, because most of us lack it because we don't know what it is. Most of us had never had the example of what that is. Most of us have not been taught of the nature of what it really is. So we are just functioning as a product of our culture and our environment and what we believe is the safest way to be, based on societal norms or the fear of not being hurt, right? Everyone has a reason as to why they are that way. For example, an envious person can only be envious because they cannot see who they are in their own unique essence of self. But let's say that the envious person was given another scenario of being blinded, physically blinded, handicapped, not even being able to move. Do you think they would even have the capacity to be envious of another? They'll be so in their own lack of mobility of their natural senses to worry about it, because they won't even be able to see the life of another to be envious of, you see. But it's even sadder because they have the sight to see their life and another's. They have the flexibility to do the work of another that they see another doing themselves to make their life happen the way they want it to. But they choose to use their energy towards hating another. Now, to me, I don't care if a person is envious of me or not, because I already feel sorry for them that they can't even see the blessing that God has bestowed upon them. Because it could always be worse than what they have, but yet they choose to be envious of another. That's way sadder than a person that's handicapped and just can't see. Because you're literally, in your potential, are making the choice to hate another person. That's in itself your own made up hell. Because even when you do have what let's say others would wish for, you don't even see it. And that in itself is torture. So when you come from the perspective of seeing something that might disappoint you, seeing characteristics or behaviors that lack good character, you don't see it with judgment. You see it for what it truly is. The wounding that creates and builds certain characters to be what they choose to be, because they chose to see the world in a negative light, because they chose to see the worst instead of seeing the beauty in it, because they chose to complain instead of being grateful, because they chose to count what they don't have instead of counting what they do have. You see, it is all a choice, and life is a representation of your choices. So to be attached to people's negative, what is considered negative behavior and mindset, is only trapping you in the illusion of the fabrication of this reality. It is all an illusion. What I am going to do, though, I am going to make sure, with my intention to master myself, is make sure I take each and every opportunity to learn something from, to look for the patterns, to pay attention to the theme, so that in that knowing I can reframe my perspective into one that enforces my intention, to one that empowers me towards my intention, one that allows me to gain the wisdom towards my intention. You see, everything is moving forward to my intention, because when you think about how you can use life to build your character, the character that comes with you even after death, the character that is eternal, that once you come into being in any animation of yourself, it is known of your character. It is seen, it is felt. It's a legacy that only you can make for yourself. No one can wear it. No one can be it. No one can replicate it, because it is your unique imprint based on the infinite lifetimes that you have taken to construct such character. You see, because when you step out of this box, you see the vastness of all that you are. Therefore, your fragmented aspect of such character, of such essence, of such spirit, is a small portion of it. It's only what's coming into this dream state of reality to animate the vessel that you chose for yourself, that is perfectly chosen for such spirit, because sometimes only certain spirits can be held in certain bodies, because it is precisely designed for certain spirits. Why? Because some spirits are so intense that to put it in another vessel would completely annihilate it from the inside out. And I won't go into that, because that's in itself a whole episode. But just to put it here, you chose your life for a reason. You chose your body for a reason. Everything that has happened to you was a choice so that you can step into your mastery of self, because we learn how to reframe and transmute the negatives into positives so that we can step into the neutral state of our own 0 point and understand the value of both sides of that spectrum, right? Because to be in the complete integration of self, it is to be in the complete knowing of self, through your negatives and positives, their highs and lows, right? Because no tree can reach the height of heaven unless its roots are rooted into hell, is a Carl Jung quote that has always stuck with me, because I understood it on a much grander scale of perception. I understood exactly what that meant on a psychological level, on a physical level, and on a spiritual level. Because in order for you to truly know the definition and the meaning and the experience of what we consider to be heaven, which is heaven, it is the complete bliss of your full potential and being in the knowing, not to be attached to nothing beneath you. To be in that bliss, you have to know the complete opposite of that. You have to know yourself in the fears and in the illusion of limitations of that potential. Because in order for you to value and truly step into that higher potential, you need to have the contrast of it. Now, when we know of something from the lack of something, that is when we truly value it, because we have experienced enough life with the absence of good character, the absence of good morals, the absence of virtue and integrity and loyalty and honesty. When you experience enough life that lacks these very things, oh man, do we learn to value it. That when we see it in another, it's a level of appreciation and respect that we can't even explain, because we've seen enough shit that when we see honey, oh, we see the honey, we smell the honey, we can savor the honey. It's almost as if without this honey, just like the bees, how would we ever thrive and survive? Because to have the experience of life without these very things is to experience hell on earth. But you won't know that until you're so uncomfortable, until you had enough, until you had enough frogs in your experience that when you see a valuable man or woman, you know what that feels like. You know what that is. Without question, without doubt, and without even the curiosity to experience anything outside of that, because you know how bad it can get at that point, right? So when you step into this level of knowing, you are truly in the potential to step in true mastery, because you can't have mastery without the complete experience of the full spectrum in all degrees of yourself. We have to see who we become throughout all circumstances. Who are you without everything that you think makes you? Who do you become under survival? Who do you become under betrayal? Who do you become under the circumstances of struggle and challenges and hopelessness, where the illusion of life has made you believe that you are powerless and you are limited in your circumstance? Who do you become is the question. Now, when you can remain the same being, in the same character, with the same virtues and integrity and honesty and values and morals and loyalty within all of those circumstances, that's when you know that your character is not just a fabrication of your wanting to be, but in fact the very essence of who you are. So this is why life may seem challenging when these intentions are being placed before you even come to experience your life, because there was a purpose and reason behind it. Maybe in other experiences of yourself, you've delayed your growth. You delayed these potentials within yourself. You didn't pursue your dreams because maybe you were attached to people and places and things and beliefs that restricted and kept you stagnant. So on a soul level, you saw you were too comfortable in those experiences, and you understood that in order to move forward, you had to be shaken out of that comfort and completely removed from it to some degree for a lot of us, so that in that discomfort, isolation, loss, challenge, and so on, you learn to build your character on your own. Because it is only when we are in that solitude of self, where all true masters have gone, just like Jesus had to go 40 nights and days on his own in the desert to center himself within himself, without any influence of the external world. Why? Because it is only when we sit with ourselves and understand ourselves and see our weaknesses and strengths do we learn how to be emotionally stronger, more independent and reliant of ourselves without depending on anything outside of us. Therefore, better equipped on dealing with any form of challenge or problems that comes to be in our life. Because we are learning to gain the fortitude and the resilience that is needed to truly be in the self-mastery with the virtuous character that we have built throughout lifetimes. And that's when you know when the truth is the truth. Because no matter what circumstance, no matter what situation, no matter what status, no matter how much money, no matter how many companions, no matter the family, without the family, with or without anything, you are still that character. You are still you. Solid and unfazed. But if in that experience of life, you can be influenced to go against your own beliefs, your own morals, your own values. You can be easily influenced, you can be manipulated, you can be corrupted. Then you got a lot of work to do, right? If that's your thing, of course. Because like I say, everyone has purpose and not everyone is meant to step into such position of their own nobility on a soul level. But for those that understand the value of being that noble spirit, because then to be in the nobility of your balanced state, you are no longer needing to give or take outside of you, because you are just being that which you are to serve all that is. And the only way I can explain this so it can be a better understanding is through the periodic table, for example. When we look at noble gases, let's say argon, right? The argon gas is a noble gas because it has a balanced amount of electrons orbiting within the atom, right? And because it has 8 to be precise, it is so well-rounded and balanced that it doesn't need the interaction or the experience or the infusion of another element to fulfill its balanced state, because it is already in its balanced state. So when an individual or an element, as nature is only a reflection and a representation of the constant example and the representation of all that is in its cycle, when we think about this element precise and the true mastery process of those that choose to be well-rounded, well-balanced, to be masterful, what you're doing is you're stepping into your true nobility, not in the imaginary mask acting version of it that many do in this world. That when the fire comes, everything burns off. Why? Because none of it was real. So when the fire comes throughout the course of life, whatever remains, it's what you have truly. This is why I used to say, I want a partner that can go through the fire and come out unburned, which means they have to be as real as they truly are, because that's the only way out of that fire. And the fire will come for all of us. At what degree, that's the only difference. But it comes, and most can't even take the level 1 of fire, let alone level 10. But when you really want to know what you're made of, and you step into that fire, only a true noble, which is why it is virtuous to be noble, only a true noble gives the example of what true character is, because they are displaying after coming out such fire, which let's say is the molding of life through the experiences that can either break us or make us. When you come out on the other side of that fire, unscathed and completely whole with yourself, then that's how we define what is noble and what is not. And what I was saying before is that the element of argon, which is the example of the noble gas that I was explaining, is argon is used for many things. In fact, it is used as the gas inside the light bulb. And in its noble ability, in its element of being itself, all it has to do is be itself. And that's how it serves. Meaning it doesn't need the validation, the interaction, the companion of nothing outside of itself. And it doesn't need to give of itself neither. It just has to be whole with itself, so that in the complete wholeness, integrate itself, it can serve a greater cause. Right? Meaning it's thinking too outside the box, and there's a bigger purpose than the mundane stories of anything beneath that. So when we start to realize how everything has purpose, every element serves for something, there is no right or wrong. But to be noble is to be self-mastered, and to be self-mastered is to remain solid within yourself, so that in that being of self, you illuminate the room. You illuminate the world, just being you. And there's no more honorable state of being than that. Because that means you have gone through the course of all stages of yourself, through all the vastness of all elements, and you have reached your pivot of your integration and your wholeness and your true balanced state to be noble. And just like the gas inside the light bulb, all it has to do is be itself within that bulb. And once the electricity penetrates such gas, it illuminates the entirety of the room by just being itself. So, hopefully, you understand my drift here. And hopefully this wasn't too complex. And if you can't get it now, that's okay. When you're meant to comprehend it, it would be perceived in that way. But if you do get me, if you do understand exactly what I mean by this, then you're not that far along from being that noble essence that you have the potential to be. Just keep moving forward. Stop staying stuck in the past, whether it's through your thoughts or your stories or playing the victim or complaining. Learn to be grateful in the every moment that life gives you to be present, and take each and every opportunity to gain the wisdom from the lesson, to gain another checkpoint in the character that you are truly trying to build, so that doesn't matter what fire you go through, you still remain solid in yourself at the end of that tunnel. So I'll leave you guys with that, and thank you for listening.